Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Plant Services Toolbelt Podcast. I'm Tom Wilk, Chief Editor of Plant Services. Thank you for joining us for this episode. You know, as manufacturing moves out of the time of the COVID crisis, many plants are reporting that they are increasing their automation budgets. For this episode, we talked to Kevin Starr, and he works in the digital service space within ABB for North America, and in particular, the process industries component. Kevin's been involved with every step of service and reliability for the past 34 years, so I had the chance to speak with him recently about the digital changes taking place in industry and the extent to which automation is being driven by COVID considerations. Today we're speaking with Kevin Starr, who sets strategy for business at ABB in North America. Kevin, thanks for being on the Tool Belt today.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what you've been working on with ABB?
Oh, yes. I get to work in the digital service space within ABB for North America, and in particular, the process industries component. But I've worked with ABB for 34 years, have been involved with every step of service and reliability and making sure that the equipment that our customers purchase runs and exceeds their expectations. You know, production quality and cost to produce are the world that we live in, and if our services don't help with that, we shouldn't be delivering them. So we're finding that that's the direction that the industry is going, is we need to do more of that, and that's what I get the chance to do.
Yeah, and we're seeing that too on the plant side. The more we survey our readers about how they're using their maintenance reliability data, who they're sharing it with, we're seeing them increasingly reach out to partners who can help them make sense of the data they're collecting, both remote and on site.
It is kind of fascinating in my career as, I was around before distributed control systems, when there were single loop controllers on walls. And at that point, getting information was very difficult. So we had a whole series of solutions for manually collecting and connect, wires everywhere. And we were paid to go in and collect data. And then throughout this journey of DCS and data historians, the data is so everywhere. We're now getting asked if we can come in and read the data for our customer. So it's kind of interesting. The cycle is kind of full circle. So we're using the data filtering, the data tools, the data analytics to do more prescriptive and predictive indications to reduce or eliminate first-time fixes. In other words, why do we have to wait for a failure before we invoke action? We don't have to wait, and that's been the biggest thing. Is for customers and ABB alike. Is, well, if it's broken, I know it's broke. Mm-hmm. Well, you have downtime, you have cost to produce, you've got backup, you have all these costs associated with unscheduled breaks. There is no reason that you shouldn't embrace digital to help mitigate those risks. So reliability, the face of it changed. I mean, we're in the digital, the Industrial Revolution 4.0. I used to think that was kind of just a marketing. It's not. We're in it. COVID didn't start it, but it certainly sped it up. And so it's an exciting time to be in service.
Well, and that's part of what we're talking today, is that with the rapid adoption of digital technologies thanks to COVID, it feels like right now in the U.S. at least, we're moving out of the moment of the COVID crisis. It feels like as of July 4th, this whole country is going to give a collective shrug and say we'll do our best, but we have the processes in place to handle the situation,
Yes.
And we'll still align to those. And we're moving into a long period of managing the situation. Even our readers tell us they're mostly getting back to normal, whatever normal was pre-COVID, when it comes to a balance of predictive and proactive and even reactive maintenance. Can you talk about what you're seeing with challenges getting people onto sites, managing absences due to COVID, and how that's driven this digital adoption?
Yeah, I mean, this idea of, I hate to call it traditional service and digital service, or maybe conventional service was, basically you had a guy or a gal with a clipboard running around and doing inspections of equipment. And we call those preventive maintenance or rounds, people will call it. And then when COVID hit, you can't send people to site. So now you can't keep up with your preventive maintenance. And when there's an emergency, the customer's like, I need this fixed, but you can't come on site. And luckily we had started the digital transformation prior to COVID and already had the protocols in place, but it's like anything, people weren't ready for those. And so we have things called remote insights and some of the wearables and some of the I see what you see. We were getting requests almost overnight. Is, well, you can't come to site, but I got this thing, this iPad, or this. Can I show you? And we're like, well, sure you can. So we started doing luckily we had started the transition before COVID hit. And as I said, it sped up the adopt of digital techniques. We started doing things called digital rounds where we could actually harvest the information. The buzzwords of machine learning, those kind of artificial intelligence. They're just philosophies of, I had a failure. Can you look at your data and come up with some model to project or predict that failure in the future? It's what we always do. That's what we do in the conventional space. We now have analytics that can build off of data models to provide insight into failures so that we can start scheduling. I know you're going to be down. The plant doesn't have anybody on it. We can send in a person that is from your region, that is safe and is infection free, and they can come in and do the work. And so we have seen a big shift towards embracing the concepts of digital, which is to basically automate or project conventional methods into the digital space so that we can react faster. I mean, they don't have to wait for the person on site. Digital never sleeps, and there's no walls in digital. But there's still a P in digital, and that P is people. And I can't emphasize that enough, is a lot of digital folks have failed when they tried to implement solutions that had no people looking at the information. We are avoiding that mistake.
Okay. Well, can you talk about the types of decisions that plants have been making during the past year regarding automation specifically? It's a subset of digital, but we keep hearing about plants actually no longer planning 3 years out. They're actually making the investments now in certain things.
So you're totally what we're seeing, and then that's a big part of we're a business. We're trying to align. We're publicly traded. As those are big deals, is to have our thumb on the heartbeat of our clients. And luckily, we have a very strong capex and opex balance. And typically over our years, as capital expenditures, or they buy stuff. They buy equipment. And that was put on, the brakes got hit on parts, upgrades, and extensions, or it just was like a cliff. But about the same time, that cliff, the customer said, well, we got it. We have to throttle back, but we still need to run. And they started bringing in digital components. So luckily we'd had the infrastructure in place. So our operational excellence and expenditures were able to help, quite frankly, reduce that void in capital expenditures. And what we're seeing as we're going into this year in our forecast is we're doing a lot of forecasting, and we're seeing our pipeline increasing in parts and upgrades and expansions and digital with that. So we're seeing marriages of digital opportunities to enhance physical operations to mitigate the risk of maybe a recurrence of COVID or some other something. So how do we embrace this digital road? So that's what we're seeing, is we're seeing hope. We're seeing the lights are coming back on. We're seeing industries adapting. But there's also something else we're seeing. I don't know if but we're seeing cyber attacks. There's bad guys out there, and cyber attacks on our systems. And not just ours. Just yesterday there was in Atlanta, a pipeline got hit, and that reverberates. And so now that's the license to operate. Cyber used to be kind of a nice thing. Now it's you can't, if you're ignoring that at your site, if you don't know when you've done your backups, if you don't do your patch management, and your IT system is great, but your OT system is what keeps the machine running. And if that gets hit, you could be down and cost millions. I'm not trying to scare people, but that's what we're hitting. Is it's not something that happens to somebody else now. And so in the digital arena, as exciting as it is, it pulls in some people that have different than noble intentions. But fortunately, there's a whole arsenal of cyber solutions that can help mitigate that risk. That's a big thing that we're seeing, huge thing that we're seeing right now.
That's interesting. At the maintenance and reliability conferences that Plant Services covers, a lot of times there'll be sessions on cyber attacks, how to develop a good response plan, on the assumption that, if the hit happens, better to be ready than to not be ready. And a surprising number of people in these sessions will raise their hand, and they're able to say in public, yes, we were hit. Yes, one server got locked down. Yes, we had to rebuild. It's, as you say, it's more common than people think.
Yep. Oh yeah. And it's, nobody wants to see that blue screen, or install money here to be able to see your screen. That's why I asked, if your screen goes down, how long can you run? And you need to mitigate. And it used to be that was enough on service. If your server fills up, your hard drive fills up, your controls are all in manual. Now it's like if someone throws in a virus and it shuts your machine down, that's where we're at. It's just the evolution. Right. And I'm seeing a recoil. It's like, oh, well, we can't have any connections from the outside. I'm like, that's just not going to work. You have to put in the security to make sure you're protected, because you can't have the other thing that we're seeing. And I don't know if that's part of this or not, is I said there's a P in digital. In the traditional approach, we had subject matter experts on a particular asset class, and they were experts at a facility or a region. The automation space has grown exponentially, literally. And so one person can't possibly know the entire stack. And so what's been happening when there's a failure or a break, the customer says, hey, my system's down. Well, okay. When I get that call, my system's down, I'm like, well, that could be the power supply. That could be the network traffic. That could be that someone bumped the consistency transmitter. That could be what we're seeing is the interconnectivity in the stack of issues that can cause a system go down are no longer supported by one skill set.
Okay.
And so what's happening is you're seeing workforce balance, you're seeing stress. People are like, if I get called, I don't know what to fix. And we're seeing the opportunity to help with digital. So you have digital components that can ascertain the health of individual components, apply analytics to reduce the sphere of basically expand the sphere of influence of our guys and gals to be able to focus on there's something wrong here, and then be able to pull in the experts from all over the world. We actually call that the Connected Engineer Program. Okay. That's a big deal. I think that I think even our customers are like, if I hire an IT guy, that means I can't get a control person. If I hire a control person, I can't get a chemical person. And so the idea of hiring a point solution, our clients are running into the same thing. It's like, well, what if I gave you 10% of all the best? Really? You can do that with digital, but you can't do that with a person. But people, I don't say that because nobody can know everything in the digital space.
Right.
But you can be alerted to areas to focus. And that's where I am excited about, is pulling these things together.
That's a really fascinating insight, especially in the way it's going to change the makeup, I think, of maintenance and reliability teams. Once in a while, I'll talk with people, and we jokingly talk about the death of the maintenance team for this reason, is that, well, maintenance teams will continue to exist, but not the jack of all trades maintenance teams. Well, because you simply can't afford that anymore. There's no way to handle the whole stack.
Now I see that's exactly what typically what happens with service providers like ABB is, if you typically only sell to the area that person knows, and the plants are massive, and so you're leaving areas of the facility completely unprotected because, oh, this guy knows this. And that's part of that's what's hard for us folks, humans, is to realize you can't know everything, but you have to depend. And that's where the next wave is going to come, is in mitigation of false positives. And what I mean by that is, if your analytics present a failure that's not really a failure, so you dispatch somebody and it's not broken, it was something else. So, or a true negative, which is everything's fine, but it just broke. So that's what we're already moving into, is alarm rationalization, triggers, best practices, golden batch. Where should you operate? Where's your sensitivity curve? When have you deviated? those are the next level of things we're already gearing up for. Is that's the other thing is when our limited staff goes and fixes a problem that's not a problem, that's wasted effort. So one of our catchphrases is the right person at the right time with the right solution. That's the right value. And that's not just with one person. It's not just with, it's a combination of people, technologies, and processes.
Okay. Well, and we've covered sort of the data collection end user side. We've covered the analytics side with services providers. Final question for today: what role can the system integrator community play in this new industrial normal to help tie things together?
What we're finding, and that's another great insight, is it's different by different industries, and that's one wonderful thing. I've had the opportunity with ABB is to work in pretty much every industry that we have, which is everything. And so what we're seeing is some of our oil, gas, and chemical customers, they use EPCs for integration and system integration, and they're leading the pack. And this thing that we've introduced called adaptive execution, you're dealing with giant systems, that have people working from around the world. In the old days, it's not just you put it in a server, you have a factory acceptance test, and you have hundreds of people working on a project, and you have system integrators that are integrally involved with that, and they're distributed. We have taken advantage of the digital age to consolidate with things like digital twins, with cloud computing and edge computing, so that people can be working from remote locations. And what we're seeing is it reduces our startup time, which is primarily what these integrators are after. And what I have to bring up is a lot of times system integrators are done when the project's done, but the people on site, your reliability team, are now owning that. Well, now that's great. They just got something they have no idea, and somebody else did. In the digital space, we can help with that continuum so that they're not stuck with, well, what's that? So we can actually help tie. So digital adoption, adaptive execution, bringing people together in a collaborative environment. That's what's exciting about digital. Is as nasty as COVID has been, is it's forced us to change the way we do business. It's changed our customers, and I know it's a scary world out there. And so we have helped clients with assessments, plan assessments, to help them identify their levels of, I hate to say maturity, but where are they on the digital continuum?
Sure.
And so we can start where they're at with the equipment that they have and move in the direction. And that's, every industry is a little bit different, but we have solution sets that apply across the board. But the underlying theme is production quality or cost to produce. If our customers can't make a profitable product, they don't need our help. So our job is to make sure they do that better than anybody. And we happen to sell great automation equipment too.
Fantastic. Kevin, I can't thank you enough for being here today and sharing your insights with us.
Oh, it's a blast, and it's wonderful. And we're here to help. And that's what we do.